College. I am A. Mary Francina, Faculty of Business Management and member of Incubation Center. I'm happy and proud to welcome you all to the workshop on design validation through various models organized by St.Ann's Incubation Center under IIC MHRD initiative. We are glad to have with us dynamic and vibrant resource person, Mr. Santosh Kumar, Chief Operating Officer, GoQuest Media Venture. We welcome you, sir, and thank you for your presence. I also welcome our well-regarded participants. I request the dignitary and all the participants and faculty members to join us in prayer to invoke God's blessings. I call upon Miss Blessy to lead us into prayer.
Good afternoon, respected ma'ams, sir, and my dear fellow mates. Let us start this event with a prayer. Father, thank you for every seed that has been filled here today. Only you truly know that we are setting out to accomplish today. We have an idea, a vision, a hints, and daily instructions. We have talents, abilities, and time to work. However, only you can see in perfect detail the end of every beginning, every project, every season, every life. Nothing is ever in vain, for every mistake and missteps are used for good. Your righteousness transcends all our efforts and understanding. Strengthen us our confidence in who we have made us to be. Set us free from comparison in order to work together efficiently. Bless this meeting today, all those present, as well as the lives of those who will encounter afterward. Ready us to make every moment count. I pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Blessy. We will have our traditional auspicious lamp lighting ceremony as a tribute to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of knowledge. I request all of you to join us for this ceremony. Rajeshwari, can we play it because there's no audio, Rajeshwari?
It's okay, continue.
Okay. Thank you all. I take pride in introducing our college. St. Anne's College for Women was established by the Sisters Society of St. Anne in 1983. Ever since its inception, the college has the distinction of excelling in academics, research, and extracurricular activities. At present, the college has strength of over 3,000 plus students and well-qualified staff members belonging to 32 different departments. The college has been re-accredited with A+ grade by NAC in the year 2018. College is also declared as College with Potential for Excellence by UGC. College has been marching in the path of success under the ace and abled leadership of our beloved principal, Dr. Sister P. Amrita. Incubation cell of the college aims to transform the innovative ideas into viable business proportions. It helps students to nurture culture of innovation at campus. This workshop is organized to facilitate a platform for budding entrepreneurs to support in starting a business venture. With the support and motivation of Dr. Smita Asthana ma'am, Dr. Venugopal sir, Srikala madam, and Neeraja madam, we are organizing a series of such events to create job makers. I request Mrs. Rajeshwari, Faculty of Computer Science and Incubation Center, convener, to introduce our guest speaker.
Good afternoon, all. Mr. Santosh Kumar, presently working as Chief Operating Officer, Go Guest Media Ventures. He pursued MBA in Finance from Symbiosis Startup Leadership Program Fellow, Executive Management Program in Business Management from Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. He is a executive board and national membership chair at YLC All India Management Association. Mr. Santosh worked as a CEO, Digi Booster, India's premier influencer marketing platform. He executed many prestigious projects, including brands in FMCG, fitness, healthcare, technology, and movies productions houses, music labels, and web series. He designated as Vice Chairman, Startup Committee, Indo-French Chamber of Commerce and Industry. He is a co-founder and the CEO of Spot Play, an out-of-the-box facility to add a bit entertainment. He is a co-convener of the Associated Chamber of Commerce and Industry in India, India's oldest industry body. Mr. Santosh served lead startup leadership program in the year of 2016. He is an advisor at YM Soft India. He is a civic leader with Bangalore Political Action Committee, volunteer at Akshaya Patra Foundation. He is specialist in startups, business plan, fundraising, financial modeling, biz model, growth hacking, angel investment, risk management, project management, business analysis, IT, agile, change leadership, fintech, and media. We are happy to have you, sir. Sir,
Thank
we
you
are
so much, ma'am.
yes, sir. We are welcoming with virtual green greetings. Please accept our green greetings, sir.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be on this forum, talking to all the young students and the faculty members of St. Anne's.
The forum is open for you, sir. Please take over the session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. So let me share my screen.
Yes, sir. I will stop. You can continue.
Yeah.
So Santosh is co-host now, no?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm able to share.
Yes, ma'am. I made. Yeah.
Is the screen visible to everyone?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, sure. So let me start with a quick introduction of what we are going to do today in terms of the agenda as well as the audience segment that I understand. If there's any change, do let me know in terms of the audience part, right? I'm assuming that there are about 100 odd students who will be looking to learn on design thinking and design validation. The student fora includes pre-grad, undergrad and postgrad students. Am I right on that, ma'am?
Yes.
Yeah, and these are from all the streams, commerce, science, as well as arts. I'm assuming that, so I'm trying to keep it very non-technical so that everybody is able to learn something out of this session. And I also am told that there's a session earlier done on design thinking. So I want to continue, take the thread from there and continue from there, then build up the design validation aspect and the models that we're going to discuss today. We'll also do a small case study by the end of the session today. And I have about roughly, I think about an hour and 15 minutes. That's about 75 minutes. I'll keep aside 10 minutes for the Q&A at the last. So we will kindly request all the students to have any questions. So kindly keep it till the end so that let's finish up the presentation first and then go through the Q&A in a detailed manner at the last 10 minutes. Right? Yeah. Are we ready to start?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So welcome everyone. Let me take you through a refresher on design thinking. I'm sure you must have read a lot about this design thinking. You must have heard a lot about design thinking. But my question is that why design thinking, right? Can I keep it interactive? I would love to have some information from the students also, if they can answer certain questions. Is that fine with you all?
Actually, we have muted, sir.
All students will be muted, sir.
Oh, all students are muted. Okay, so I generally prefer to have this, uh, instead of a monologue, it would be better as a dialogue with everybody getting engaged. If that is possible, that would be great.
Sir, we can ask students to give their answers in the chat box.
That works, man. That works.
Okay. Okay, sir.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so my first question to everyone is why design thinking, right? Why do we need to change the world that is already functioning so well, except for the COVID part, right? Why was there a need for design thinking, and where does this need arise from? Right? Any answers that students want to put in? I'll be happy to look at the chat window. So are there any answers?
Not as yet.
Right. Uh, I want to request the students that kindly feel free to give an answer. Don't look at how others will judge you or if it's a wrong answer. It doesn't matter. Attempting is the most important thing, right? If you attempt, that's when you start learning. The biggest learning that you take home is by doing some wrong attempts. So feel free to make mistakes. Feel free to give answers, and then let's look at how we can uh, learn from each other's answers, right? Okay, I have certain answers, which is because design thinking helps in managing the project properly. It's more creative and attractive. Is a need of invention, maybe because of that, capture new market. All of you are talking about the effects of the design thinking, but I'm looking for the cause. The biggest cause for design thinking is that when we take up a normal project or any other product development without looking at the final user perspective, right? What happens there is that we might end up having a wrong product out in the market, right? And that is where design thinking becomes very, very essential and also very efficient model to follow. Design thinking brings in a complete clarity of thought in terms of who is the user and what is the need for the user. It doesn't look at now what are my challenges, what are my capabilities as an organization, but it looks at a holistic picture from the user perspective. So that is the reason why we need design thinking, right? So let me ask you a second question, students. What is the most important resource that we have today? Anyone, right? Whether it is your professors, whether it is me, whether it is you, whether it is another startup, whether it is our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, what is the most important resource all of us have? Okay, I see internet a lot, human resource. No, you're missing out a very key resource. No, the answer is time, right? Time is the most important resource every organization and every individual has, right? 100, 200 years back, time did not matter that much because we were not in a fast era. Today, we are in a very fast era where things keep changing every moment, right? We need to be utilizing our time in the most efficient fashion, right? Uh, Typically, when I ask this question to startups, they say funding is the most important resource. But again, for every startup also, it's not funding, it is always the time. Because you only have certain amount of time and it is not elastic. It cannot be increased, right? Whatever is lost is lost. It can't be brought back. While profits can be brought back, while any other resource can be increased, the time cannot be increased, right? So time becomes the most important resource each of us have, and that is the reason why we don't want to end up spending our time on working on a product that is not useful for the end user, right? I'll repeat myself. Every organization or a startup don't want to spend their time on chasing a wrong product which the users don't want. because time is very essential for each of us, and we don't want to waste our time on chasing a bad strategy, right? Yeah. So that is the reason why design thinking comes in handy, because we look at how the end user is going to interact with the system. We look at the big unknowns, and also we don't look at a long-term project building. We look at a very short-term agile method to run across building our product, which is a problem that we want to solve, which is a solution for the problem, right? So the key aspect of design thinking is this, right? Finding the right problem, doing the right thing is the first step, and then the follow-up step is the problem solving, which is doing the things right, right? So the two key things are what? Doing the right thing and doing the thing right. This is sort of very easy to remember, doing the right thing and doing the thing right. So because this will help us save our time and keep our focus on the right structuring and right paradigm, right? And that is the reason why design thinking is very, very powerful as a tool, and it's being imbibed by a whole host of institutions across the world, right from the Google to the Netflix and to the Facebook. Everybody is today talking about design thinking, and it's not a new phenomenon. It's almost a decade-old phenomenon, which is being used by a lot of large companies as well as startups. And why it becomes all the more essential startups is because startups have a very high chance of failure, right? In this era, we have a very limited time to spend our focus or our energy on building a product, and every year, every few months that you're wasting on chasing a wrong product design or a wrong product, we end up going back, right? Which means that I can't compete with the other startups. That is the reason design thinking is very essential. Second bit about the startups is also that we talk about startups in a lean fashion, right? Because they are very disruptive and they are light in terms of uh, their ability to change. They're very nimble. They have to be very nimble. Right? Any startup which is not nimble is already dead on arrival, right? So the startups have to be very lean. And what happens when you are lean? You can you can change your stance, you can change your direction, and this becomes a very big advantage for the startups against other established corporations. And when you are using design thinking, it becomes all the more easy for them to pivot. You look at a product, go execute, find the results, come back and rebuild the product. So it's a complete cycle that you need to churn out. And the shorter the period or shorter the cycle you make, it becomes very, very valuable and you become very, very powerful as a startup. Okay. So let me take you to the next screen. So design thinking is again generally seen as a linear activity. We all know this standard 5 block design thinking, which is called empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Have you guys, all the students gone through this design thinking 5 block theory already? Can I get a yes? Yeah, wonderful. Have you also looked at the non-linear process on this? So the linear process is empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. It goes on a continuous fashion. So my question is that have you looked at this slide where it is a non-linear design thinking? So can I assume that everybody has an understanding of this? So I can skip and move to the next slide. Okay, I'm getting an overwhelming yes. So I'll take it to the next slide then. Right. So now let me give you a comparison of what design thinking looks like in front of lean startup and how agile stacks up. Have you all heard of agile methodology? Can I get a yes on that? No? Okay. So agile methodology is something that is used in the a standard software development cycle. Okay. So in earlier days, good old days, about 2 decades back, we would do like a whole year of planning, and then we would go ahead and start building the product. or a software that could take about 2-3 years, and then there'll be a 6 month of testing cycle, and then you have a final product. So it's almost like anywhere between a 2 year journey to a 3.5-4 year journey for one end-to-end software piece to be built. And that is how the IBMs of the world used to work earlier. Uh, but then come 90s and 2000s, we saw a massive change in the user requirement. Suddenly, the banking sector changed where people were more comfortable with the ATMs. So which meant that I cannot spend 2.5-3 years to build a single software piece, right? I need to be very, very nimble, agile, and very, very quick to change my product or the software. Right? If you look at airlines, again, that industry has changed massively. If you look at media, that went through a massive change in the late 90s and 2000s because there's a dot-com boom that was happening and there are a lot of competition that was coming up from the younger startups, right? Which essentially told the larger companies that you cannot take a long time to build. Imagine a civil construction project, right? A house construction could take about a year, 2 years, right? That is how the software development used to also take. That is the kind of time that would take, where you would do a huge lengthy study of 1 year to get the product requirement or the project requirement, then go ahead and build the software, do a massive testing, then roll it out to the customer. And if something goes wrong, you again go back to the drawing board. Again, you need to go back and do the development, and that would take another year or so to do any changes. Right? So software development was very similar to the construction industry, right? The time taken was very, very long compared to what we are doing today. So come Agile, what we did is that we all realized that we need to change our method and be faster. So we work in sprints. So under the sprint method, what happens is that you do the whole cycle of software development within a month. Like, can I bring down 3 years of development within a month? Is that even possible? No, right? So, but what do we do in a month? So, what do we do? We take a single feature. We take one feature, build that out, take it to the customer, get a feedback, then do the second feature, and also update the first feature if there are any change requirements from the customer. So that thereby I'm very, very agile. If any of my features have to be changed, if any of my features have to be dropped, I am not losing 1 year of my development lifetime on that. I'm going to be much quicker now. That is how the agile methodology helps the larger software companies to compete with in the new era of the in the new millennium. Right now, take a step back and look at the lean startup. What does lean startup do? Right, it's an iterative cycle again, very similar to agile, but here you're not doing projects. We call it as product building. Right, every startup is looking to build a product and what do the startups want to do with the product? They want to scale it. Just building a product is not enough. You need to scale the product, and what else you need to do? It has to be any answers. What does the startup have to do? They have to build a product, scale it, and it has to be repetitive so that the success becomes much bigger than what each of us can imagine. So it has to be repetitive, scalable product building. So which means that I need to go on the iterative mode. Right? In the iterative mode, what I do, I build, I learn from the building, I try new experiments, I measure my success. Right? So I keep going on this. Right? Build, measure, learn, build, measure, learn, build, measure. Right? It's a continuous cycle where I keep adding new features to the product. I keep targeting new markets. I keep targeting new set of customers with a different kind of product and learn from it and add that learning to my core product. So it's something called as A/B testing is there in the market that a lot of technical folks would understand. Is that you test in a small market and learn from it, then roll out the product. So it's called as iterative building. It runs in the iteration in a circular fashion. Now, uh, how does design thinking help in the lean startup and in the agile method of product building? Right now, this screen will actually give you a complete understanding of that. We look at the customer problem first, right, and then look at the solution. Uh, a lot of companies earlier used to find an existing solution and then try and do that at a cheaper cost, right? That's an easy way to look at things, right? If let's say there's a car that is costing 10 lakhs, if it's an SUV, then can I come out with an SUV that is going to cost less than that and then capture the market? Okay. What is the flaw in building a product that is already there and then you're competing on the price? What is the flaw in that model? Why should not startups look at that? Can I get some answers? Why should the startups not look at building cheaper products of or emulating products that are there and build a cheaper version of it? What is the flaw in that model? Any answers? I see quality will be affected as an answer. Any other answers? Some don't like repetitive, right? Right. Okay. Ask me now, Urusha. You're right to some extent, but the biggest problem or the flaw is that when you cut down the price, the competition will also cut down the price. So there is no guarantee that you have an edge, right? So if the competition cuts down the price, if it's an existing company with large coffers, they can kill you. It's a bottomless pit. That's how we see in the startup world. It's called as a bottomless pit. Because let's say Amazon wants to capture the market, they will offer a large discount. That's what Uber did. That's what Ola did. They all offer discounts, right? If you go the discount with it, it's going to be very difficult to sustain, and it becomes a last man standing game, right? And then we as startups cannot uh, be the last man standing because the larger corporations have better balance sheets and better ability on the financial side to survive, right? And this is exactly the reason why we should always look at the customer problem that is not being solved today. And when you attack that problem, right, then you are bound to build a product that the customer loves, right? There's no better outcome than your customer endorsing your product. You don't need to do any marketing. That is what we call it as word of mouth marketing. Can you think of any product that you have seen which comes out of the word of mouth marketing? Any products or any services that you have seen that has come out of the word of mouth marketing? I don't see answers, so let me give you quick answers. One is your colleges, right? Most institutions, even if they advertise, it doesn't matter. Every student or every parent will want to get a word of mouth uh, advertising or word of mouth confirmation from an existing student to understand how the college stacks up against other colleges, right? So we all do that. We do the same thing with the movies as well. We ask our friends to say, hey, did you watch this movie? How did you like it? Hey, is it worth a watch? Right? We also go and see the review, right, online. So these are all again word of mouth. Cosmetics is to some extent a good example. Reader's Digest is a brilliant example, Bhakti. They didn't spend much on advertising, but it's a phenomenon in itself, right? Reader's Digest is a brilliant example, right? So to when you say word of mouth, it's exactly your customer or your client endorsing the product. In the startup language or in the corporate language, we call that as net promoter score. We measure it in the net promoter score, how your customers are uh, becoming your ambassadors, right? So in the design thinking model, customer problem is something that we need to identify and empathize with that. Right? Once you step into the shoes of the customer, you see that you are able to define it in a better way. Uh, that is the reason why a lot of startups have been successful, because they come out with products that they wanted initially, right? If you look at, let's talk about an example of Airbnb. Have you all heard of Airbnb? Can I get an S? Have you all heard of Airbnb? No? Okay. So Airbnb is a $35 billion company now. It's a massive startup. And what do? They essentially become the marketplace where I can book instead of a hotel, I can book a room at somebody else's house. So let's say I'm traveling to Chicago. I can see hundreds and thousands of houses that are renting out their rooms or the bed. Okay, I can just book that, and it's way cheaper than the hotels. And I also get to live with some locals, so thereby I can learn, I can understand the culture better. It's a brilliant marketplace for uh, a replacement for hotel booking. In in today's world, or as of today, Airbnb is the largest. Uh, what is it? It's not a hotel, but it's the largest stay booking platform by far. It's probably 5 times bigger than OYO, right? And even in India, we have those where you can book. It's not really service apartments. You can also book a bed, a single bed inside somebody's house if they're willing to rent it out, and it's way cheaper. I can book it. I can go and stay with them, and then I can, I don't need to do much of check-in. I don't need to, and I can also get it right in the heart of the city. While hotels will be very expensive, these become very, very affordable for a single traveler or even a family traveler, right? So, how did Airbnb start? The problem that uh, Brian Churksy was facing for himself was that he was not able to get a bed in California when he went for an event. And that is where he started exploring with his friends that can we do something where we can just rent out the mattress. So the relation I want to bring in here is that he saw a problem that he was going through. So he was able to empathize from the user angle itself. He was not looking from the product building angle. He saw what was the problem that I was facing and is there a solution that I can build. So that helped him define the problem in a better manner and also ideate on that, right? What is the best solution to do, right? Is it renting out air beds, or is it renting out a room? Is it renting out a full service apartment? So they were able to ideate better and then go through the lean startup model of build, measure, learn from it, again experiment, build, measure, and learn. So that's how they were able to build a $35 billion company, right? So let me quickly move on to the next screen. I hope this is clear. I'm trying to bring in the connection between design thinking, lean startup, and agile. If you're looking to work on building a venture, you need to empathize with the user problem. So you need to know that that's an it will become very clear for you to build what product, right? And what platform. Do you want to do an app? Do you want to do a web platform? Do you want to do it in India? Do you want to do it only in a certain city? All these become your, all this will come out from your ability to identify the problem in the right manner. I'll quickly move on to the design validation methods. So far we've understood, I hope all of us have understood the design thinking models and how design thinking, lean startup, and agile method are linked, right? And this is very, very important to validate, right? Whatever you've identified, you need to validate. Otherwise, what will happen if there's no exam? What happens to the students? We don't study well, right? Whatever I heard in the class, only that remains with me, and I'm also not revising. The same will apply to all of us in the uh, uh, startup or even the business segment, right? I need to validate my design thinking. So let's look at how a software validation happens. Right? When you're building a software, there are two activities that you do, which is verification of your requirements, as well as you also look at validation, right? Uh, so, have you seen this model? Anyone? Is this a familiar model that you looked at on the software side? Okay, so let me spend a couple of minutes on this. I'll tell you how the software development works. This is essential for any startup that you're building today because you need to have some basic understanding of how the technology development is happening. You cannot go ahead and build a product without having the basic understanding of technology. You don't need to code yourself, but at least you need to be able to talk the language, right? So, what is the first step that we do? The first step that we do is called as requirement designing, right? Now let's look back into our design thinking model, right? What did we do there? We identified the problem. That customer problem will become my requirement, correct? So I need to design my requirement. Okay, this is something that a technology person will not do. This is something that a business person will do better, because you are able to understand and visualize the solution for the problem, and you are able to empathize for the problem. Right? The system design is what something that the technical person will do. He will define the architecture, right? He will also say what tools to use in terms of the product development. Okay, but you should tell whether I want to have an app to reach out to my customer, or I should do a web model, or I should do maybe a micro apps, or am I going to do a physical outlet, or am I going to do a marketplace model? So all of these have to be defined in the requirement. The system will only take that requirement, and this person will structure it in a technical language, and thereby doing the design architecture, right? He will be able to look at this and then create a better architecture for him, right? Now, when we do this, we need to also parallelly start building test cases. Uh, you can ignore all these, acceptance test, system test, integration test, or unit test. Uh, think of it like when you say, when I made a, when your mom cooks at home, right? What is the validation that she does first step? The moment she's cooked something, what does a natural mom, an Indian mom, do? Exactly, right? So uh, the mothers at home, they would do a small dip test, right? We got to take it in the hand and test it, or take it in a spoon and taste it and see if the salt is fine, if the spices are fine, do you need to add more masala? The same thing is applicable to every step of life for us. On every activity we do, we need to do certain tests, right? I need to do a test in terms of seeing if my product is functioning correctly. I need to see if my product is functioning correctly in the mobile browser, in the laptop, or in a desktop. I need to look at if it works in Android. I need to look at if it works in an iPhone. So all of these are called as validation phases, right? So don't look at the technical terms and get disturbed. Look at it from the cooking angle, right? Every time you do, then you see what is it hot? Is it tasting correct? Is the salt is enough? Do I need to add sugar? Do I need to add masala? This is exactly, or do I need to add more water? Do I need to make it more spicier? All of these are what we anyways naturally do. Apply the same logic to your system building, also a product building. The moment you have a product, you need to test it at certain levels, looking at if my system is functioning correctly and which all environments, right? iPhone it works, Android it works. Does it work on the Windows laptop? Does it work on MacBook Air? Does it work on a larger screen? Does it work on smaller screen? So all these are basic tests that have to be done. Right? And this is the validation phase, and on the left side is where is to do the verification phase. And all of these process is very important, because you need to go back and update your features, or do incremental changes on your features that you're building, right? And the the developer will not have an understanding of what the customer wants, right? The developer is only sit and build a product. Now, as a business owner, as a startup entrepreneur, right, you need to also test not from your end, also do some valid testing with the market phase, right? You need to go to certain markets, test with them, and see if they like your product or not. Remember, I talked about a short life cycle of development, where within a month I can build a product, I can build a feature, go back to the customer and get a feedback from him. The same thing is also very, very important for us to do in every product building activity that we do. You need to build the product, go to your customers, and come back with the feedback and tell your developers to update or do some efficient building of systems, right? So, if you have any questions, you can put it in the chat window. I'll take it up. Yeah, I think we have another 2 minutes in this on the screen to cover. If there are no questions, I'll move on to the next one. Okay, so I don't see any questions. So I hope this is making sense to all of you. So this is one of the design validation models that is called as the B model. It is used in the software programming, right? So this is essential for you. I repeat again, because in today's era, You cannot build a venture without a technological interference or a technological interface for your business, right? Even the APMCRs are using technology today, right? You name it, construction field, you name it, any field, there is a technological interference there. So this is very good understanding for you to know that there's a V model that can be applied. Okay. Let me move to the next screen. Okay. Now let's look at a different way of doing design validation. Right. This is a different model. This has been very popular with the hardware businesses. Right. I'm taking an example of medical devices here, and with this, what are we doing? The earlier option we saw was on the software, but the model will completely change now because it's a hardware device that we're looking at. Uh, do you guys understand the difference between software and hardware? I know it might be a silly question, but it's good to answer it and clarify any doubts there. Can anyone answer difference between software and hardware? So Srinivas says set of program is called software. There's a simpler way to look at it. A software is generally an intangible that you cannot touch or feel, right? A hardware is more physical, so which means that you can actually, your laptops are your hardware, your phones are your hardware, right? And then the Android system is the software in it, right? Uh, a laptop without a Mac iOS or Windows, software operating system is of no use, right? Yeah. So the design thinking will remain same whether you are doing a hardware activity or a software activity, but your validation models will change. You cannot apply the previous model on the hardware device. Let me quickly show you the previous model. In this V model cannot be applied to your hardware because hardware have certain nuances, right? Because there's a factory shop involved, and that has to be done through a different model of validation. That is why we call this as a web model, right? Right. So let me start from the user need. What is user need? That is my customer problem from the design thinking aspect. I already know this. What is the user requirement in terms of the product, right? Then this goes into the design input. The design in a software is much more agile that I can change it quickly. But in a hardware, if I do a design, it's going to be costing me a lot of time to design, and then any changes on that is not easy. Okay, when we come to the case study, we look at a very recent example of a large company going through the trouble, right? So I'll touch upon that. So design input is very, very important, and this is a very key phase, right? Any changes to this is going to cost a lot of time and energy to do because the hardware, being a physical a spectrum of the product, becomes hard to change, right? I have to change the mold, I have to change the metal, I have to change the component integration. All of these become my bottlenecks. So design input is a very important phase where you need to have the clear understanding of the user need and convert that to design, and then go ahead with the process, right? But once you do the process, you will have certain output, right? This output has to be verified quickly with the input. My design input was this. I wanted to, let's say, build a 5-inch mobile phone, right? When I start building, I say 5-inch with, let's say, 3 millimeter, or let's say a 1 centimeter thickness. My design input is that a 5-inch hardware phone with a 1 or 2 centimeter width of it, right? Thickness of it. But when I start adding components, I add battery, I add better camera, I add something else, right, inside, and then what happens? My thickness of the phone becomes beyond what I initially started with. Then my design output probably will becomes a 3 centimeter, right? Is that a good product to sell in the market? No, nobody will buy a 3-4 centimeter thick phone today, right? You might have the best of the technology built inside that, but nobody is going to hold a brick in their hand, right? Because everybody wants a sleek handset. That is where once the output comes in, you need to go back and verify with your design input. Have I adhered to my design input, right? And then again, change the input if it requires, quickly do the design process and do the design output. So one of the best ways that we can do today, this uh, process or this workflow is by going with a prototype. Right? This has been practiced since the industrial era, where whether it is a car or an aircraft or any other large hardware or a medical equipment, they always come with a prototype, test it out for the final user feedback, and after that go back and redesign if there's any need for redesigning, do the design process again, go through the cycle. Right? This cycle now has become shorter and shorter. Uh, how have we reduced the cycle shorter now? What has changed in the world in the last decade that has made it easier to go through this process? How can I validate a hardware without really spending years together building a product? What technology has come in? So let me give you a hint. 3D modeling, you've heard of it? Right? So 3D modeling is one way to visualize, but that is not a prototype. So how do I do a prototype that something I can hold in my hand and test it? Artificial intelligence is not the answer. I'm talking about a hardware product, let's say a phone, right? I want to have a phone, right? What do I do? How can I do this? I can see a 3D modeling in the software, but how do I check it in my hand? Have you heard of 3D printing? Yes, right. So today, in the last decade, we have come a long way that we are able to build prototypes in less than a day. Right? If you have the design, all you need is go to a right 3D printing partner, and you can actually get it in the metal. You can get it in the right fiber that you want to use. Right? So 3D printing today uh, is still not the best way to do the final product, but it's the best way, by far the best way to do a prototype. By doing the prototype, what am I doing? I'm actually, instead of just visualizing, I'm holding the product in my hand. I know how the bottle looks. I know how the contours look, right? And I know how much liquid can I fill. I know how the cap works. Will it spill? So I can test all of these by doing a 3D printing of a bottle. Even before I do a massive, large scale building of the product or going to the factory. And 3D printings are very, very cost effective for prototyping. So this is being used even today, even in the medical device industry. Uh, so what do I do after all the verification, and if my design output is good, then I go and do the final product outside. Okay. Now, the most important thing, or the most important failure point, right? A lot of startups or a lot of companies forget is that when you do a medical device or any other product hardware, you need to go back and validate with the user. If you think my verification is sufficient, then you have a failed product, because by that time the customer may have a different need. One, what are the reasons why the product might fail? Because maybe my understanding of user needs were wrong initially. So I need to go back and get a user validation on this, right? It could also be that there are other competitors in the market which I have not seen in the last 3 months. So in my process of building this product, I might have not added a feature which the customer needs today, right? So all of this become a very important validation phase point for me to realize from the customer directly. So what do? We do a test market. We go to the customer and we give him the product to use, and we get the feedback. Okay. Have you heard of how the car industry or the automotive industry works in the product validation phase? Do you know how the automotive industry validates their product? let's say Mahindra is coming out with a new car. What do they do? What do they do? They build a prototype, not one, but they build probably 10 or 20 prototypes. They do crash testing. They do a lot of other testings in terms of the longevity of the life of the car. Okay, and they also invite users to test the product, which means that, yeah, a test drive is when the final product is out, the customer gets a test drive. But slightly before that, what they do is they invite certain users or customers on a secret testing, right? When they actually go through the product and they say that, hey, probably my, the seats are not comfortable, the curve is not being taken care of by the car, or are there any other glitches, or are the handlebars not at the right angle? Is my mirror at the right place? So they, uh, the the product design team must have already tested these things, but the customer may have a very different view, right? The customer will have a certain understanding of what is his comfort. And today we're not in an age where the design team will drive everything. It is the customer who drives the need, right? So customer should validate the product, and only then a product is called successful, right? So this is how the hardware industry functions. Now, what do we do at every stage? Do you see this review? This is something that got added in the last 20 odd years in the hardware industry. Is that we realized that when we go from design input to process and output to a final product, if we don't review it with the user needs, then again I might end up having a miscommunication, right? So have you played the game Chinese Whisper? Have you all played this? In our childhood we might have played that. Okay, where I tell a sentence to one and then the other person passes it to the third person. After about 10 people, then the whole sentence that I've told would be distorted completely, because each of us would have a different way of expressing a need or a sentence, right? So this is a game that we used to play as a child, and that is the same that happens in the industry also. If the user needs, sorry, if the user need is not clearly articulated by the design team, they might end up doing a wrong output. That is why at every stage you need to review it against the user need. Right? This review is always against the user needs. Okay, this will save you a lot of time and heartburn as a product company, where you don't waste or lose time in going through a wrong, going to a wrong direction in terms of your product building. Okay. I hope this is clear. I'll move on to the next important model. Is this clear? Yeah. Somebody mentioned the user has to convey the proper requirements to the developer. Yes, but if you played the game Chinese Whisper, you know that I have told you something, but if you don't convey it properly to the other person, then whose fault is it? Is it my fault, your fault, or the third person's fault, right? So then it becomes my output will be wrong, right? So that is where the review is very important at every stage. Okay. So let me move to the next important model that we want to discuss. This is the latest model that was given by the Design Council of UK, right? This was not with a vision for the innovation, but they focused on this approach to help the designers, the UX designers. I have a question. What if we want to change our final product? What we need to do? Right. So the question is that what if we want to change our final product? What do we do? So if you have to change it, you have to change it, Urusa. You need to go back and redesign your product, right? The the question to ask is that how much time have I wasted in building the product, and is this is my product that I'm going to build now is the final product, or is this the real user requirement? A lot of companies have to change the product, which is very natural. But the question to ask is that can I identify the need quickly and build the new product quickly? So the cycles have to come down. That is the essence of design thinking and design validation. Instead of spending about a year, whole year, and then realizing, can I do it in 1 month? So my time wasted or my resource wasted is only for a month, and thereby I have enough time to recapture the market. Right? Now this is called as the double diamond design model that was being promoted by Design Council of UK. This got picked up very well for the user experience design. Right? Do you have you heard of this user experience? The terminology. Have you heard of user experience as a terminology? Okay. So what do you do on your phone? Any apps that you touch and you scroll through, that is called as user experience. The user's interaction and what experience you get out of using the product is called as user experience, right? And that is become a very, very important activity in the current era where there is a lot of competition and product building has simplified over the years. So if you don't provide a good user experience, right, then the customer will not be happy. Let me give you a quick example that all of you can relate to. Okay, have you used Netflix? Right, Netflix and Amazon Prime. All of you must have used at some point in time. YouTube, right? So compare that with our, maybe a 5-year-old time. Let's go back 5 years back when the internet speeds weren't good, right? How would my user experience be before the Geo came in and the 4G technology came in? How would my user experience be? I'll be like waiting for the loading. Remember that circle that used to go on the screen, that it is buffering, 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 right? Yeah, right. So the user experience of waiting for the buffering is a painful experience for the user, right? I want to do something, but the internet speeds aren't good. I'm waiting for it. But today I'm able to stream a 4K video on Netflix without any buffering, right? So the streaming has become much faster. So my user experience has improved. I enjoy watching movie now. I don't have to wait for the buffering to happen of the screen or the video, right? That is user experience. Now, how do I improve the user experience? There are 4 Ds to that. We call it as 4D model or double design model, so double diamond model. The 4 Ds are this: discover, right? What is the problem that we are trying to solve, and how the users solve the problem now, right? For example, right before uh, the internet speeds started catching up, what were we doing? We would go and load the movies in a pen drive, okay, and then play it so that I can avoid the buffering time. So that is how the user was solving the problem. This is a very important question to ask. Discover, right? How users solve the problem today, right? And then we go and define, right? So when I do that, I need to also empathize with that. I can't just go and ask the users. I also need to experience that. As a design person, I need to experience that. I understand the intricacies of the touch points. That is when Netflix has cornered the market today, right? They are able to visualize, empathize with the customer. They're able to do a big data reading to understand at what point in time the user emotions are at a certain level. And that's where they give you the better recommendations on the next video to watch. YouTube also does it extremely well now, right? So once I discover, I need to define that in a clear manner. Right? This is the important point where I have control, right? And if I don't define correctly, then I end up going in the wrong direction, right? So what I do, I need to discover that the way the customer is solving the problem, then I define that in a detailed manner, then I do a prototyping. So what does prototyping envisage here? If it's a software, right? I do a software prototype, which means that I might launch an app. I might have a small launch page on a web to see how my customers interact with the screens. So the prototype is given there, and then I develop that. Then I go, right? I go and deliver it to the end users for testing. This is the same discussion we had in the software. If I roll you back previously in the V model, we said we need to test and then also validate with the customer. Even in the hardware product, we said we are doing that. But what's different here is that I reduce the time. I do the prototyping in the shortest span of time, quickly deliver usability testing, then come back, learn from it. So build, measure, learn. That is a mantra of the day to day, right? If you have to just take away uh, three key terms today, that has to be like build, measure, learn. This is all about iterative designing, iterative product building, right? So what do we do? Once we build, I measure what my customers are telling, and then I learn from it. I go back and either I have to go back to my drawing board or I go back to the development phase. And if my development has a wrong turn taken, then I go here. Right? If my product design itself has taken a wrong turn, then I come here. And this is the same model that I can apply today in the innovative world to all kinds of products. Somebody had a question that, are the models different for different sectors, right? Somebody had this question in the chat window. The models don't change as per sector, but for every sector, you need to adapt. For every market, you need to adapt the model to fit the cycle of product design could take 10 years versus if I'm in a construction industry, it might take about a year. Come back to, let's say, a software development or a startup that I'm building, right? My product cycle has to come down to less than a month. That's what brings the difference in success and failure, because I'm able to iterate faster. And in the startup world, we call it as MVP, minimum viable product. Have you heard of this term, minimum viable product, MVP? Yes, right. Okay, so minimum viable product is known to you, so it's very good. That is exactly what we are able to establish here with design thinking and design validation. When I use my design thinking model, I know what is the customer need. I've discovered that I'm able to define it in the right way. I'm able to empathize. Now I build a prototype. I go back to them with a not a full-blown prototype. I go with a small prototype with a key feature that they want, right? Let's look at what is a key feature for, uh, let's say, if you're building a two-wheeler motorcycle, what is a key feature that you want to have? If you're building a motorcycle, what is the basic feature that you want to build, right? So yeah, ma'am is talking about mileage. So if that is the target market that I'm looking at, if my design thinking reveals that the customer is having a problem with the mileage of the vehicle, and if that is what I'm going to do, right, I'm going to only focus on that feature. I don't need to build a full-blown vehicle with nice chassis and a robust wheel design and all those things. I don't need a fancy, flashy design. All I'm going to do is efficiency of my engine, because mileage will come from the engine, right? So I need to build better efficiencies. Once I test that, I can plug my engine into another vehicle, test it out, get readings from, measure the outcome, get the user to test it, get the feedback from them, then build the full product. So my MVP for this use case will be that I will build a better engine. I'm not focusing on building a better I'm not focusing on building a better motorcycle here. I'm focusing on building a engine first, right? So, uh, so I'm going to leave you with this for a couple of minutes. I want you to look at the double design model in a much deeper sense now, right? How do you understand your user? So I want all of you to read this. Then I'll take some of them and I'll talk about this. Like in the first phase, where the research is happening, right? So these are the steps that I can take to understand the user. Understanding the user is what is going to bring me the clarity of the user's problem. Wonderful question, Asima. Asima asks, what if I'm building a service, right? And in that case, how do I put design thinking? So let's take what example should we take in terms of a service model, right? Would So it's still 3:30, Bhuneshwari. So let's look at the service. What services are we looking at, right? Uh, would delivering food be a service? Is that a service? Can we look at that? Delivering food as a service, as an example. So let's build on that example. Now, if delivering food is the service, then how do I deploy design thinking and design validation here, right? Uh, so in my service of delivering food to the customer, I need to pick up. Firstly, is that a problem at all? That the customer doesn't want to go and buy his food, he wants someone to deliver his food. That's a service I'm providing, I'm willing to provide, but is that a customer problem, right? How do I understand if it's a customer problem? Can I empathize with his challenges? Is by doing this, right? I do stakeholder interviews, I do user interviews. So when I talk to customers or potential customers, I need to go with a set of questions to understand what are his challenges, and I need to do a survey with a larger set of users and not just my family and friends, right? That will give me a distorted vision. If I go to a larger set of users, then I'll get a better uh, clarity of the real user problem, right? So if I talk to a household person, right, maybe a mother who's cooking, she'll say that, hey, I don't want to have food delivered, I'm cooking it myself. But when I talk to a bachelor who's working, right, he would say that, yes, I want to have my food delivered. If I talk to a student, he or she might say, hey, some days I want to get delivered, some days I want to actually hang out in the canteen or a food joint, right? So each of them have a different perspective. So that's why it's very important to choose your right audience and a better sample set when you do the user interviews. Similarly, you need to also do the stakeholder interviews. In this example, who's my stakeholder in the food delivery business? The stakeholders are customers as well as the restaurants. So I need to talk to them. Are they willing and are they looking to even adopt this model? If it's not an interesting model for them, then I have a problem. Because there's at one side there's a customer who wants it, but on the supply side there's nobody who's ready to supply, because hotels might say that you know what, I don't want to deliver, or I don't want to give it to you to deliver, because you might end up changing something that will impact my brand name, or it might become cold and the customer will be unhappy with me. I want my customer to come into my restaurant and have the food, right? That could be a stakeholder interview outcome, right? I also can do business analysis, right? Business analysis will give me a clarity in terms of, is there a feasibility to do the business, right? Is it a small problem? Is it a large enough problem that I can work on, right? Uh, so can I do mind mapping? Can I do content audits? Content audits is not applicable to this kind of a service model. I can do ethnographic studies, right? I can look at, is this a challenge in southern India? Is it a challenge in Bangalore? Is it a challenge in probably Tumkur? Do people in Tumkur want deliveries? Probably no, because there's no traffic issue, there's no parking issue, they don't want deliveries, right? So when I do the ethnographic studies, I'll get a clarity on which markets to target, right? Then also I do the personas, right? I identify the different user personas who can be my customer, right? My user personas are these: one, a working professional who wants the food delivered, right? A working couple, right? They may not have the time to come home and cook, so they want the food delivered. It could also be a student who's from a different city, who's not staying with his parents, he wants the food delivered. It could also be uh, a different set of customer, like a, a driver or someone who is always on the move, and can he pick up his food at the curb, right? It could be uh, a travel salesman who keeps traveling on the streets, but he doesn't have the time to go and pick up his food from the curb, but he wants delivered to a certain location. So there could be a different set, 5 or 10 different sets of personas that I can create, and then look at how do I empathize with them. Can I really step into their shoes and identify what are their challenges? Is parking problem a challenge? Is driving in the traffic a challenge for them to go to a restaurant? Is time a challenge? Is identifying the restaurant and booking a seat is a challenge? What is a challenge? When I identify these problems, then I might realize that, you know what, food delivery is not the problem. Maybe there's a bigger problem in terms of the parking lots. Can I build a startup on a better, providing a better parking spots for users? That will be a bigger challenge to solve, and that will have better revenues for me. That is where this design validation double diamond activity comes in as a service. I hope it answers the question Asima had, as well as gave clarity to others on the research part. How do I use my validation here? Can I get a yes on that? Yeah, thank you. We have another 15 minutes. So I want to take up a quick case study, because we've already spoken a lot on the design iteration part in terms of product building, right? We talked about the build, measure, learn. We've already done that. Uh, I want to leave you with this slide for a minute, and if everybody's okay, I want to take up a quick case study. Right? Okay. I will share the slides with you all on a PDF file. You can actually go through them and also Google about these and get more information. Uh, so I want to move to the next slide. Right? So I'm going to skip this because it talks about 5 ways to fail at design, what not to do. So, ma'am has a question. Are there more models? So currently, ma'am, there are a few variants of these models. Like if you look at design validation models, we already saw Double Diamond has two models, right? In this, there's a hypothesis, initial problem assumption, and it's a time continuum, right? The first model was just one set of loop. In the second model, it's a continuous time continuum activity where you do the same activity for every feature of your product. In the time continuum model that I'm talking to you now, here when I'm talking about time continuum, for every feature you need to run through this validation. Design the right thing, design the things right. This becomes the motto. So there are variants of the models. But today, if I had to let the students have one model that is going to be the model to look at, it's a double diamond model. That is what is everybody is working on. That is what is being seen as the future of the world today. Right? Even if you don't remember the V model, it's okay, but double diamond is the key model that every startup, every entrepreneur, every corporate employee in today's era has to be convergent on. And I'm skipping this because it talks about, it's very simple and easy to understand. 5 ways to fail at design. This is from the Harvard Business Review. I was part of the survey when we did this. So you can read through this. It's very simple to understand what are the 5 things not to do. Okay. So let's look at the case study. Right? The first one I'm looking at is the Boeing Max. Have you guys heard of this? Have you guys heard of Boeing aircraft? Can I get a yes on this? Okay. So some of them might have heard of it. Okay. So Boeing is a company that manufactures aircrafts. Okay. And they compete with another company called as Airbus. Airbus is European based. It's a French and French, UK, German, and Spanish conglomerate. It's a joint venture between 4 different countries and 4 different companies. While Boeing is a US based company, which is probably like it used to be the largest and one of the oldest surviving aircraft manufacturer, right? And they have a good 50%, 60% market share in the world in the aircraft manufacturing. All airlines, whether it is India or global, have to buy from any of these two companies, Boeing or Airbus. Now, what happened with the Boeing Max was there was a crash of Lion Air. It's an African airline, and this happened in 2018 October. Okay, and then immediately after that, there's one more that a fatal accident that happened. Unfortunately, next year was with the Ethiopian Airlines. Right? There's a crash, and that was touted to be the design fault. And then there was investigations that led to halting of all MAX flights across the world. I've given the timeline here for you to understand. Look at this, right? 2019. There's one crash in 2018 and there's one more crash in 2019. And Boeing, by the way, has 150,000 employees and has been at the cutting edge of technology, right? Uh, so once Ethiopian crash happened, then all global agencies who monitor or who regulate the airlines, they halted. So China did, and then quickly India followed up in a day. Right, you see this, and every Max aircraft, okay, it was being used in India by Indigo, SpiceJet. SpiceJet was using maximum of the Boeing Max. They had to be halted. They could not take off because they had to be uh, retested and reevaluated. Right. So why did this occur, and what were they trying to do? This rolls back to the 2010 when Airbus came out with a new engine option. So Airbus launched. They said, for my existing aircraft, I can give you a powerful engine that will help you save more fuel. That is 6% saving of fuel. For airlines, fuel is the biggest cost, and if you are giving me 6% saving on fuel, then this is something that I want to do. Right, I can reduce my costing, or I can reduce my overheads, right? And every airline started booking Airbus Neo, and that's where Boeing was shocked because they did not know of this new engine that Airbus was building. This was a completely secret project, and that was launched in 2010. And suddenly, Boeing had to really build a product quickly. Now, in a hurry to build a product, what was their user problem? User problem was that fuel bills were higher. They had to reduce the cost, right? So which meant that they need to overcome engineering challenges, and then they also had a GTM, go to market challenge. Airbus had already launched the product, so these guys had to also launch it quickly before the customers from Boeing will go to Airbus, right? So they had very little time to build the new airplane from the scratch, right? So they said, can I remodel my existing Boeing 737 with a different engine, with a larger engine, so that the fuel efficiency comes in, right? And uh, one of the challenge that the airline industry has is that the pilot has to be trained on every new aircraft that comes in. He has to be certified on that. So what Boeing thought, if I don't change my aircraft controls and just change the engine, then my airlines will be happy because they don't have to spend time on recertification or training of their pilots, right? So that will be a saving for them. I can sell better to them, saying that, hey, you know what, I don't have to I mean, your pilots don't have to be trained on it. All the controls are same except for the engine, so I'm just changing the engine. Okay, all good till here, right? This is the problems, and Boeing said I can probably go ahead and do the changes quickly on my existing aircraft by just replacing an engine. Right? Do you know what happened after this? This was 2011 when 2010 Airbus Neo was launched in Paris Air Show. Boeing went back quickly with an announcement that they will also launch, and this was March 2011. Right? What happened after that? Anyone knows what happened after this? Anybody has read in the newspapers or read any case studies on this? I'm assuming it's a no. So let me show you the design. What was the fatal design error? You must have all seen the aircrafts. You must have traveled. Now, under the wings is where the aircraft is having its engine. Yeah, we've all seen this. The engine is always placed under the wings. Okay, and if the problem that Boeing had, which Airbus did not have, Airbus wings were slightly taller, which meant that Airbus could just go ahead and fix a different engine below its wings. A larger engine can be fixed because it is taller. But when it comes to the uh, Boeing platform, right, or the Boeing aircraft 737, they had a slightly shorter wing, which meant that from the ground to the wing, there's only so much space. And if I add this bigger engine, if I take this bigger engine and add it below the wings, what will happen? It will touch the ground. Okay. So what do? I find a workaround. I say that I move my engine further ahead. This is what they did. You look at the wing here, wing tip, and then the engine was moved slightly ahead by about probably about 1.5 feet, and 1.5 feet in a large aircraft should not be seen as a problem. That's how the design team thought. My user problem is to give a bigger engine. I'll just put a bigger engine. But what is my problem? I cannot fit a bigger engine under my aircraft wing because the space from aircraft wing to the ground is only so much, and my engine cannot fit in there. Then what do? I move my engine slightly ahead of the wing, right, so that it doesn't touch the ground. Okay, now one thing they missed was the aerodynamics, right? When the aircraft, is doing a takeoff or a landing, it will lead to turbulence because it is not aerodynamic. Because the wing is actually covered by the engine on the front, and this became the cause for all the accidents. So there was one issue that was done, identified with a workaround, that was clarified with a workaround. This led to a separate issue. The issue was that I need to change my engine, and that led to a bigger engine. That led to changing my aerodynamics, and this is a fatal flaw. And to correct this, then they added a software tweak. The aircraft would, on its own, do the adjustment for the aerodynamics, and they added few sensors on top of the airlines and on the wings of the airlines. Now, if you look at it, what is happening? It's spiraling down. I do one mistake. To cover it, I do another mistake. To do cover it, I do another mistake. This is a spiral effect. But where did the first problem come in from? My design. If I had realized at the time of design that my aircraft wing is not tall enough to take a larger engine, I wouldn't have wasted 6 years of building the product and doing workarounds, doing band-aid. That's what we call it in the industry, a band-aid solution. Okay, instead of doing a permanent solution, I'm doing band-aid solutions. Because the aircraft engine was bigger, I move the engine ahead. Because that is impacting the aerodynamics, I do a software tweak, right? And that software tweak is not controlled on its own, then I add artificial intelligence to do that. And what if there's a high, additional wind, then I need to do another software tweak, right? All of this led to a spiraling of the effect. So from 2011, when they made the announcement, to the final product launch in 2017, and the crash in 2018, 19, and stoppage of Max in 2020, 8 years or 8 important years were lost for Boeing, and their reputation was completely jeopardized. While they've been existing for about 70, 80 years, this decade has been a forgetful decade for them because even the users started, canceling their journeys with the airlines. They said that, hey, I don't want to take the journey if it's a Boeing aircraft that I'm going to travel on because it's very risky, right? So I hope this gives you an understanding that software is for the company's future. Whether you're doing a startup or you're doing a large enterprise, whether you take up a job or do your own venture, design becomes a very important stage in your life, in your product life cycle, and you need to have very good clarity on your design stage. If there's something wrong, don't cover it up. Please go back to the drawing board and redo it. It's much more efficient to redo it than doing a band-aid solution, which is a temporary solution. I hope this is clear. I'll, I'll leave you with another thought, is that there's another activity that UK did in the 60s when they built a high-speed railway, and it was called as advanced passenger train, which was the fastest recorded, had the recorded speed in Europe, but it failed massively because of the turbulence. Right? The engine was good, the train rails were good, the speeds were good, performance was really good, but they did not do user testing. They did not ask the user to sit in the train. And what they realized is that when the passenger is sitting in the train, it is very nauseating. It feels like a roller coaster ride, and people started nauseating and vomiting in the trains. Okay, and that's when the massive investment, billions of pounds, was spent on building this new technology was completely wasted, and tens of years that was spent on the design was wasted. So I'm talking about two hardware designs here where large enterprises failed. And the last slide I want to talk about is how the design thinking era has propped up new startups who are super successful. We talked about Airbnb. You all are aware of Instagram, Netflix. How the user interface, user experience is really, really taken to a different level on Instagram compared to Facebook or any other social media platform that is out there. Snapchat is now killing Instagram in a way. They're taking it to the next level with the user interface and the features. Flipkart has cornered the market in a very Indian way. Uh, PhonePe is doing the same thing on the payment side. You must have heard of Quicker, Oyo, WeWork, and Paytm. All of these new age startups and new age enterprises follow the design thinking model and design validation model. For every feature they release, they spend a lot of time understanding. When I say a lot of time, it is not months, it is in the days that they spend. They do a lot of user interviews and then quickly build the product, go to the user, see if it is satisfying, iterate the whole aspect, which is the build, measure, learn. Remember this: build, measure, learn. That is the iterative model that is being used by all the startups and even the larger enterprises. Like even IBM today has a huge design thinking department itself, function itself for them. Any questions that you have, I'll be happy to take up. It's already 3:30. I can take another 5 more minutes to answer any questions here.
So there's one question from the participant who has posted in my personal window. The
Sure,
question,
ma'am.
yes, the question says, sir, is design validation procedure has an impact on the cost of the product? Is there the enhancement of the cost of the product? Like positive sides are many, but what is the tip? Like what's the pitfall of design validation? Is it expensive cost
Sure.
customers?
Yeah.
Something in that context is the question, sir.
Got it. I understood. So the question is very simple. Is it worth doing the design validation, right? Is it worth implementing my design thinking model, right? The answer is much more simpler. We talked about the time wasted, the money wasted, billions of dollars wasted by Boeing when there's a design flaw, right? If they had identified that earlier, and that would have come out in the design validation phase, right? If they had done that earlier, your long-term cost is completely wiped out. You may have a short-term cost of maybe 10 days or 15 days to do that, but that negates a huge long-term cost. What is the long-term cost? Boeing has spent 8 years building that Max, and there are hundreds of lives lost, right? And it's a reputation loss. It's a time loss for Boeing. 8 long years could have been negated if they had spent more time on the design validation, right? So that's how you need to compare the cost. The cost is not should I spend more time now. The question is that what is the benefit I get if my ROI is bigger, then I should do that. Right? There's a question: what is the difference between validation and verification? Right? I think we covered this in the earlier slide. Let me show you the slide where I talk about it in the V model, right? In the V model, you see this verification, right? Verification is where it is at the inside the company, right? My architect is verifying with the system design. Okay. Even here, verification in the hardware we saw within the design input and output is a verification. So this is within the company. Validation is always from the user. So that is outside the company. I hope this answers your question, Asima. Thank you, Asima. Are there any other questions? If not, let me do a quick recap of what we talked about, the key slides that talk about. We today looked at design thinking and how it is related to the lean startup method of building startups and agile. Right? Design thinking is a precursor to the lean startup method, which is build, measure, and learn, and this is an iterative product development cycle. Okay, and you can keep continuing this in a time continuum manner when you go and build multiple features on the product. Let me one important thing I want to touch upon is that on the startup development phase, right, where is the design thinking fitting into this model, right, in the startup development phases, right? Design thinking comes in the pre-startup, right, and design validation comes with the MVP and product market fit. For I do the product building here, I go back to the customer, get the product market fit, come back, either change my product building or change my design itself. Okay, I'll repeat. Pre-startup phase is where the design thinking comes in, and that leads to the design validation, which is spanned across minimum viable product building and product market fit. This is where the validation happens. If I fail here, my curve goes down. There is no growth. I'm killed as a company. I'm killed as a product. Okay, so you should always remember where you should apply this design thinking and design validation. Okay, I hope that is clear. I'll do a recap. We talked about the design validation V model, which is an older model which we use in the software development lifecycle. Okay, and on the hardware side, I gave an example of the medical device. How here the verification happens in the design process, and the validation should happen at the customer needs. And there can be multiple iterations of product development within the company, as well as when you get the validation from the customer, you might do an extra round of product development. And we talked about the design validation model that is currently in vogue, which is called as a double diamond or the 4D model: discover, define, develop, and deliver. Right? This is called as a double diamond model, and it takes from the design thinking aspect and takes it to the next level in terms of the validation. Somebody has raised their hand. Uh, I don't know if there's a question.
There's a question, sir, in the chat box.
Yeah, okay, I'm looking at it. There's a question. Sir, do you design any product? If yes, then what software tools do you use to design the product? So yeah, I've done quite a few product launches. I've exited 2 companies also. So you can look at our site called spotplay.co. Right, you can Google for my product called Spotplay. We have won so many awards on this product. And so what I don't want you guys to worry about are the tools, because there are so many tools that keep coming up that you can use, right? So more than that, I want you to have a focus on how to understand the product building aspect, right? So in terms of the tools, software tools that you want to use, right? You can use Canva, for example, right? You can use a 3D modeling software that you can use to do a product design. But or you can use a business model canvas, BMC. So there are a lot of these are tools. So today we're talking about 30,000 feet view above of tools. So the tools will come and go, the tools will give you certain efficiencies, but I want you to understand the concepts behind the tools. Then your ability to choose a tool becomes that much more efficient. That's why I don't want to spend time on talking about the tools. I'll be happy to answer any question that you may have. Ma'am, can I share my email ID on the chat window so that if there's any question, I can take it offline as well?
Surely, sir. Please do that.
Yeah. I'm going to share my email ID here. And this is my personal ID. I'll be happy to answer if there are any pertinent questions on design or design validation. Right? I've shared this with everyone. This is available to, I don't know if it's available. Okay, I think I sent it only to Alpha. I sent it to everyone. Yeah, everyone, I'm going to send it to you.
Sir, it didn't reach everyone, sir. Yes, sir. Now we received.
Sorry, ma'am, your voice is cutting out. Yeah.
Sir, we received it now. Your email ID, we received it now.
Okay.
So there's another question in the chat box, sir.
I'm looking at that. How to learn more deeply about designing? Any suggestions, right? So what I'll do is I'm going to send this slide. Probably by today evening, I'll send the slides. I'll also share a few links that you can read from. And then the best experience will come from when you can actually start doing a real live experience of building a product. There are a lot of simulation tools that you can use to simulate product building. And also, why don't you just go out in the market to look at what is the problem that certain segments of people have, and is there a solution that I can build? That is the best way to really learn. I'm a big fan of hands-on experience, so that's the reason why I'm asking you all to really go out and brainstorm, look at a problem in the market today, whether it is on the education side, whether it is on the finance side, whether it's on the media side, whether it is a problem that you are facing, your parents are facing, your professors are facing. There are so many problems that all of us have. Can we build a product that can be scaled? That is what I'm going to suggest as an answer. Somebody has a question, is there any ideas to improve the designing techniques? Srinivas, I'm going to share certain reading materials as part of my deck. So that will help you with some directions on where to read on this design techniques or design thinking. Okay. I hope there are no other questions.
Yes, sir.
And if there are no questions, then I would wrap up my session. Thank you so much, everyone. I'll stop sharing the screen.
Yes.
It's been a pleasure interacting with you all. I hope there's a takeaway for each one of you, right from the professors and the faculty members to even the students. I hope it was useful. I'll be happy if you can share any feedback to Francina ma'am. And ma'am, could you please facilitate that, get some feedbacks from the students so that
Definitely.
this will help me improve my presentation style as well as my interaction with the students also.
Definitely, sir. I'll do that with you. Sir, with your
Thank you so much.
shall we have a group photograph, sir?
Yeah. I'm anyways there online. So
Okay.
it's
Students,
getting
can I
recorded.
request you all to on your videos, please? All the students, if you could on your videos, we would take a group photograph.
There's a lot of fatigue on the webinar side when I do a lot of webinars and I don't see faces. So it's like I'm talking to the wall a whole lot of time. And then when I see faces, I'm so glad there are real people on the other side. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Does anyone want to take a screenshot of this? That's the digital photo version.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm taking.
Ma'am is,
I'm taking.
ma'am is taking.
Yeah.
Wonderful session, Mr. Santosh. What a wealth of information, and it would have been so wonderful to, be a real presence and not a virtual presence.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Probably someday I'll travel to Hyderabad. I think we are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel now with the COVID. Hopefully, mid of next year we should be back as a normal human beings outside with social engagements.
That's true.
I would love to sometime visit the institution. So I'll be happy to explore certain other sessions on different topics. How I think this younger generation needs that hand holding, and I see a lot of bright questions coming in the chat session. So I was very happy with that. Because this also makes a good sense for me on how the students are looking at various of these aspects and how it is being added to their curriculum. So this is a very good initiative. I would congratulate the whole team for doing this, because innovation is very, very important for the students and for their future careers.
I particularly enjoyed your Boeing Airbus story. Not story, case study, I should say.
Yeah.
I next
No, it
time.
always helps. What I've seen with my experience is in the last 2 decades, whenever